At first I thought it was thunder. The sky was clear, but the house, my house, shuddered anyway. Then came the low, grinding rumble of a diesel engine easing forward, slow and heavy, followed by the sharp hiss of air brakes. The sound didn't fade like a car passing through. It settled outside and stayed. I slipped out of bed without waking my wife, Mia. Our son, Caleb, had finally fallen asleep after a bad dream, and the last thing I needed was a household awake at 2 in the morning. I pulled the curtain back a few inches. A white cement mixer sat where the grass met my gravel access lane. Its drum was speckled with dried grey streaks, like old paint. Headlights off. Engine idling. The driver's silhouette leaned over the wheel, waiting. My land starts just beyond the fence line that runs behind the last row of manicured backyards. It isn't much, 3 acres of scrub grass, a few scattered pines, and an access road I keep graded because I use it for work equipment when projects run long. It isn't HOA common area, despite what the board liked to say whenever something benefited them. The truck's front tires were on my lane. I watched for a minute, half expecting it to reverse. Instead, another set of lights crested the neighborhood road. Another mixer. Then a third. By morning, there were 6. Mia found me standing in the kitchen with a mug of coffee I hadn't touched, staring through the back window. "What is that?" she asked, voice thick with sleep. "Problem," I said. She squinted. "Those are cement trucks. They're parked on our access lane." Mia's gaze flicked to me. She knows my face when a situation becomes a calculation. "Did you call someone?" "Not yet. I want to know who sent them." Caleb padded in, rubbing his eyes. He pressed his face to the glass. "Are they building something?" "Not on our land," I said, keeping my tone even. I walked outside. The air smelled like cut grass and diesel. At the edge of the lane, the nearest driver stepped down from his cab, boots thudding on the gravel. He was middle-aged, sunburned, wearing a high-vis vest with dust ground into the seams. "Morning," he said, like we were neighbors meeting over a fence. "Morning," I replied. "Who told you to park here?" He tilted his head toward the neighborhood. "Dispatch said HOA approved it. Said this was overflow space. This is private property." His brows rose in mild surprise, not concern. "That's not what I was told. You've got trucks on an access route my family uses." He held his palms out. "Look, man, we're pouring foundation pads over on the new phase. They don't want our rigs lining the main road. We were instructed to stage here overnight." "By who?" I asked. He hesitated, then gave me a name like it should mean something. "Linda." I didn't like the way he said it. Casual, familiar. Like the person had power in his world. I went back inside, took my phone, and called the HOA office line. It rang until it threw me into voicemail. I tried again, then emailed, then texted the property manager listed on the last newsletter. Nothing. At 9, I drove to the clubhouse. The parking lot was spotless. The fountain burbled like the community had no other concerns. Inside, the manager, a young guy named Trevor who always smiled like he was reading a script, looked up from his desk. "Daniel Mercer," I said. "We need to talk." Trevor's smile sharpened. "Of course. What's going on?" "There are cement trucks parked on my land." His expression didn't change. "Oh, yes. That. Yes." My voice stayed calm, but I felt heat behind my ribs. "The board approved temporary staging," he said. "It's just for a few days. My land isn't the board's to approve." Trevor's hands made a small motion, like smoothing a wrinkle. "It's adjacent to the community. It's inside my boundary lines." Trevor leaned back. "Daniel, I'm sure there's a misunderstanding. The HOA maintains that corridor." "You maintain the fence line," I corrected. "Not the parcel." He spread his fingers on the desk. "Linda is the one coordinating with the contractors. She can clarify." "Then call her." Trevor glanced at his monitor. "She's in meetings." "I'll wait." He stared at me for a beat too long, then gave me a polite nod that didn't carry warmth. I can schedule you for the next open slot. When is that? Next Thursday. Next Thursday. I repeated, because sometimes repeating something out loud reveals how absurd it is. Trevor held his smile like a shield. That's what I have. My phone buzzed before I could respond. A text from an unknown number. HOA Board President Linda Carver. I hear you're making a fuss. Those trucks are staying. Don't interfere with community operations. I stared at the screen until my jaw tightened. I typed back, they're on my property. Move them today. A second later, your property is within community jurisdiction. You don't get to decide. That sentence landed like a slap. Not because it was rude. Because it was confident. I left without saying goodbye. Back home, the line of trucks had grown. Mixers, a flatbed, and a utility truck with orange cones stacked like a warning. They were arranged with the casual entitlement of people who'd never been told no. My access lane, the one I used to bring in my own equipment, was now a parking lot. Mia stood on the porch, arms crossed. So they think they own it, I said. She exhaled slowly. Do we have proof? That was the question. Because in neighborhoods like ours, confidence often beat truth until you put paper in someone's face. I went to my office and opened the folder I kept for land documents. Deed, tax records, the survey from when we bought the parcel. I pulled the survey first, spread it across the desk, and traced the boundary line with my finger. The line ran clean along the back fence, cut outward, then wrapped around the access lane like a protective arm. The lane was mine. I scanned the notes along the edge, bearing angles, distances, the surveyor's stamp. I knew what I'd find, but seeing it in ink steadied me. Facts don't shout. They wait. My phone buzzed again. Linda this time, calling. I answered. Linda. Her voice came through crisp and bright, as if she were hosting a charity luncheon. Daniel, you need to stop harassing our contractors. I asked who authorized trucks on my land, I said. That isn't harassment. It's community staging, she replied. We're improving property values. Everyone benefits. Not when you trespass. She laughed once, short and dismissive. Trespass. Please. That strip is effectively HOA controlled. Effectively doesn't hold up in court, I said. Her tone cooled. Are you threatening legal action? I'm stating reality, I answered. Move the trucks. Silence. Then, quieter, sharper. You will not embarrass this board over something you don't understand. I looked at the survey on my desk, the stamp dark as a seal. I understand deeds. You're being difficult, she said. No, I replied, voice level. I'm being clear. She hung up. Outside, another mixer rolled in, engine roaring low as it turned into my lane like it belonged there. I watched from the window as it settled into place among the others, blocking the way as neatly as if someone had planned it. Mia came into the room, saw the papers spread out, and read my face. What now? I tapped the survey with one finger. Now we stop arguing with opinions. I folded the documents carefully, slid them into a file, and stood. Now, I said, we deal in proof. I drove to the county assessor's office with my survey tube on the passenger seat. The lobby smelled of copier toner and air conditioning. When my number flashed, I slid my folder across the counter. I need the recorded plat and deed history for parcel 17B, I said. The clerk, grey hair, rimless glasses, typed fast. Address. I gave it. He clicked through screens, then nodded once. Still in your name. No conveyance to the association. What about easements? I asked. He turned the monitor slightly. There's a utility easement along the back corridor. That's it. No HOA ownership of the lane. He printed the pages and stamped them. Could I get that on letterhead? I asked. His eyes lifted. You expecting a fight? I'm already in one. 10 minutes later, a supervisor handed me an official letter confirming the parcel boundaries and the limited easement. It was clean. Back home, the trucks were still lined up like they'd been invited. Someone had thrown down plywood near the soft soil. Tire tracks chewed my lane edges into ruts. Caleb watched from the window with a toy dinosaur clutched to his chest. "Why are they on our grass?" he asked. "Because they think they can," I said, then softened my voice. "Go finish breakfast, buddy." In the garage, Mia read the county letter twice. "So they're wrong." "They're confident," I replied. "That's different." I wrote a formal notice on my laptop, balanced on a workbench beside a roll of measuring tape. Trespass. Demand to remove commercial vehicles. Deadline. 6 p.m. today. I attached the survey, deed, and county letter, printed 3 copies, signed each, and walked one to the HOA office. Trevor took it like it might explode. "I'll forward this," he said. "Now," I answered. He called Linda in front of me. His smile was gone by the time he hung up. Clubhouse conference room. 15 minutes. I arrived early and spread my documents across the table. Linda Carver entered, blazer sharp, lips painted, carrying a leather portfolio. 2 board members followed, Mark, insurance salesman, rule lover, and Denise, who usually stayed quiet. Linda didn't sit at first. She stood at the head of the table as if it belonged to her. "Daniel, you've caused quite the disturbance. I've requested you remove trucks from my property," I said. "Here's proof." Mark leaned over the papers. "The HOA has long-standing control of that corridor." "Control isn't ownership," I said. "Read the stamp." Denise scanned the county letter. Mark's face tightened when he saw the letterhead. Linda still didn't touch anything. "You're trying to derail an approved project," she said. "Delays cost the community." "Then stage on HOA land," I replied. "Not mine." She finally sat, slow and deliberate. "That lane provides access to community operations." "It provides access to my parcel," I corrected. "And your operations don't override my deed." Linda opened her portfolio and slid out a glossy master plan map. "Our community plan shows that area as association property." I tapped my survey. "Plans aren't records." Denise's chin lifted. "You're being unreasonable." I pushed the county letter toward her. "Unreasonable is pretending a stamp doesn't exist." Linda's smile thinned. "What do you want, Daniel?" "My lane cleared," I said. "And repair for the damage." Mark barked a laugh. "Damage?" "Ruts, compaction, torn grass," I said. "Photographed, dated." Linda leaned forward, voice dropping. "If you make this difficult, people will remember." There it was, pure social pressure, dressed as governance. I stood. 6 o'clock. Outside, my phone rang from an unknown number. "This is Ray," a man said. "Site supervisor. HOA says you're threatening to block our trucks." "I'm telling you to remove them from private property," I replied. Ray exhaled hard. "We've got a foundation pour scheduled. You cost us a day, you'll get billed." "You can bill your client," I said. "Not me." A pause, then steel in his voice. "Where do you expect us to put them?" "Anywhere you have permission," I said. "Not my land." "If you lock anything up," he said, "I'll have it cut." "I'd like to hear you say that to a deputy," I replied, and ended the call. At 5:30, a patrol car eased beside the line of trucks. Officer Holloway stepped out, hand resting near his belt, eyes taking inventory. "You Daniel Mercer?" he asked. "Yes." "HOA says you're harassing contractors." "I'm enforcing my boundary," I said, and handed him the county letter. He read it, eyebrows lifting. "This shows the lane is yours." "It is," I said. "They were told to leave." Holloway glanced at the trucks. "They're blocking access." "To my parcel," I replied. He sighed, the sound of a man who'd seen neighbor wars before. "This is civil. But if it's your property, they don't have permission. Don't touch their equipment. Don't damage anything." "I won't," I said. "I'm installing a gate on my line." He studied me for a beat, then nodded. "On your boundary, that's your choice." By 6:05, nothing moved. No call. No email. Just engines cooling on my gravel. So I drove to the hardware store, bought a sliding gate kit, a chain thick enough to feel final, and a heavy padlock. Then I called my cousin Eli, the kind of man who shows up with tools and no lecture. He backed his trailer into my driveway as the sun dropped. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm sure about the deed," I said. We set posts, leveled track, and bolted steel under the orange wash of evening. Each strike rang clean, like punctuation. I wasn't trapping anyone. I was closing my own door. At 10:17 p.m., the gate rolled shut for the first time. The chain wrapped tight. The padlock clicked. I emailed Trevor and the board one last time with photos, documents attached again, and a single line: "Trespass ends now. Remove vehicles immediately," in writing. Across the lane, truck cabs sat dark. Behind neighborhood blinds, I could feel the backlash forming, quiet, angry, and certain the morning would belong to them. Mia was already sitting up when I swung my feet to the floor. "They're here," she said, not asking. Outside, diesel engines coughed to life and died again. A horn blared, one long, irritated blast. I pulled on boots and stepped onto the porch. Ray, the site supervisor, stood by the gate with his phone pressed to his ear. Two drivers hovered nearby, arms crossed, breath fogging the cool morning air. The steel gate caught the sunrise and threw it back in hard lines. The chain hung straight and uncompromising. Ray spotted me and pointed. "That's him." He ended the call and walked closer. "You need to open this." "I don't," I said. "You need to leave." "You've trapped my trucks," he snapped. "They're on my land," I replied. "They were told to move." Ray's jaw flexed. "Cut the chain," he said over his shoulder. A driver took a step forward, then stopped when I raised a hand. "Don't," I said. "That becomes criminal damage." Ray laughed once. "You think a piece of paper beats real life?" "I think records beat assumptions," I said. His phone rang again. He listened, eyes narrowing. "HOA's calling the cops," he said, like it was a threat that should end the conversation. "Good," I replied. "I already spoke to them." By 7, the patrol car returned. Officer Holloway stepped out slower this time, the way you do when you know the story's grown overnight. "What happened?" he asked. "They locked us in," Ray said. Holloway looked at the gate, then at me. "Daniel." "My boundary," I said. "No permission. Notice given." Holloway sighed and took the documents from his folder, copies I'd handed him the night before. He read them again, longer. "This is still civil," he said. "But I need to make a call." He walked away, voice low into his radio. Ray paced, boots crunching gravel. One of the drivers lit a cigarette, the flame shaking. 10 minutes later, Holloway returned with a different posture. Less referee, more messenger. "County zoning is sending someone," he said. "Transportation, too." Ray swore under his breath. "That's unnecessary." Holloway shrugged. "Commercial vehicles parked overnight on private land without consent. They'll want a look." The first county truck arrived at 8:12. White, unmarked, purposeful. Two inspectors stepped out, one with a clipboard, the other with a camera slung across his chest. They didn't ask permission. They documented. "Who authorized staging here?" the woman asked. Ray pointed toward the neighborhood. "HOA." She nodded and kept writing. "Who owns the land?" I handed over the folder. She flipped through it, then handed it back. "Thank you." By 9, there were citations taped to windshields. Parking violations. Zoning violations. Improper staging. Each bright slip felt louder than the engines. Linda arrived just after 10, heels clicking across gravel like punctuation marks. She wore sunglasses too large for the morning, her mouth set tight. "This is outrageous," she said to no one in particular. "Daniel, unlock that gate now." "I can't," I said. "The county's inspecting." She turned on the inspectors. "This is community property." The woman with the clipboard didn't look up. "Records say otherwise." Linda's face flushed. Those records are outdated. Stamped last month, the inspector said. Still valid. Linda's phone buzzed non-stop. She paced, hissed into it, then spun back toward me. You did this to make a point. I did it to stop trespass, I replied. You've humiliated the association. You ignored written notice, I said. Twice. Ray walked over, voice lowered. They're talking seizure. Linda froze. That's impossible. County says overnight commercial parking without permits on private land is grounds, he said. They're calling a tow contractor. Her gaze snapped to me. Call them off. I don't control the county, I said. Neither do you. At noon, the tow contractor arrived with rigs designed for weight. Big ones. The kind that don't negotiate. The drivers stood with the inspectors, measuring, marking, conferring. One by one, the trucks were tagged. The sound of airlines disconnecting carried down the lane like a series of short breaths. Mia brought out water bottles. Caleb watched from the porch, silent now, absorbing the seriousness adults forget children can read. Linda approached me again, voice tight but measured. We can resolve this. Open the gate. We'll move them. After citations? I asked. After everything, she said. We'll figure it out. You had time, I said. You chose not to. Her eyes flicked to the gate, the chain, the lock. You enjoy this? I shook my head. I hate it. The first truck was towed at 12:47. The drum squealed slightly as it lifted. Ray looked like he might be sick. Phones rang. Contractors argued. Inspectors kept writing. At 2 o'clock, Linda stood apart, staring at the emptying lane like she was recalculating gravity. When she spoke again, it wasn't to me. This will be addressed by council, she said into her phone. By late afternoon, the lane was nearly clear. Deep ruts scarred the gravel, but sunlight reached the ground again. The gate stayed shut. Officer Holloway returned to check in. You did everything by the book, he said quietly. Expect blowback. I expect it, I replied. As the last tow rig pulled away, the quiet felt earned. Not triumphant, earned. Linda walked past me without a word, her heels slower now, each step less certain than the last. I stood by the gate until the dust settled, hand resting on cool steel, listening to the neighborhood breathe again. The quiet after the trucks left didn't feel like relief. It felt like a held breath finally released, slow, cautious, unsure whether it was safe to exhale all the way. The lane took 2 days to repair. Eli brought gravel and a rented compactor, and we worked from morning to dusk, setting the edges right, smoothing the ruts, restoring what weight and entitlement had ruined. Neighbors watched from a distance. Some waved. Others pretended not to see us. No one crossed the gate. On the third morning, a certified letter arrived. Mia set it on the counter without opening it. From the HOA. I washed my hands, dried them, and slit the envelope. Inside was a notice of emergency board meeting, heavy with formality, light on apology. Attached was a second letter, this one from the contractor's firm, addressed to the association, copied to me by mistake. It demanded reimbursement for seized equipment, towing fees, penalties, and delays. The number at the bottom was large enough to command attention without theatrics. They're not suing us, Mia said, reading over my shoulder. No, I said. They're suing the right people. The meeting was scheduled for that evening. I went alone. The clubhouse room felt smaller than it had before, the chairs closer, the air less confident. Linda sat at the head of the table, posture rigid. Mark was beside her, jaw clenched. Denise had her hands folded like she was bracing. Linda didn't waste time. We're here to address the consequences of your actions. I took a seat. I responded to trespass. Mark leaned forward. Your response cost the community. Your decision did, I replied. You authorized what you didn't own. Linda held up a hand. We've consulted counsel. So have I said, though I hadn't yet. The truth didn't need embellishment. Denise cleared her throat. The county's report is unfavorable. Because the facts are, I said. Linda's voice sharpened. The board maintains that cooperation would have avoided escalation. Cooperation requires consent, I answered. I withheld it in writing. Silence pooled. Papers rustled. Somewhere in the building, the fountain continued its gentle lie. Mark broke first. What do you want? I stood, placed copies of the county letter, the survey, and the photos of damage on the table. Acknowledgement. Repair reimbursement. And written confirmation that my parcel is not subject to HOA staging or control. Linda's lips pressed thin. You're asking us to admit fault. I'm asking you to record reality, I said. The vote wasn't dramatic. Denise voted yes without looking up. Mark hesitated, then nodded. Linda voted last, eyes fixed on the table. It passes, she said. I left before anyone could frame it as generosity. The next week, the reimbursement check arrived. The memo line read, Lane restoration. No apology. I cashed it anyway. The contractors settled with the county and the association. Linda resigned before the next newsletter went out. The board appointed an interim president whose first email began with "We're reviewing our procedures." It was the closest thing to contrition the system could produce. Neighbors started waving again. One brought over a pie. Another asked, quietly, if I'd help review their bylaws. I said yes, once. Then no, twice. I didn't want to become a symbol. I wanted to be a person. One afternoon, Officer Holloway stopped by. He leaned against the fence. Easy now. County wrapped it up, he said. You kept your cool. Not everyone does. I had paper, I said. Paper helps. He smiled. It does. After he left, I walked the lane, testing the gate's track, oiling the hinge, listening to the sound it made when it closed. Solid, final, unremarkable. The way a boundary should be. Caleb rode his bike up and down the gravel, careful at the edges. Can they come back? He asked. Not without asking, I said. Would you let them? I thought of Linda's confidence, the truck's weight, the ease with which authority assumes. If they had permission, I said. That's the rule. That night, Mia and I sat on the porch. The neighborhood lights flickered on in sequence, tidy as ever. You didn't make enemies, she said. I didn't make friends either. She smiled. You made space. Weeks passed. The gate stayed closed. Not locked, just closed. It didn't need more than that anymore. One morning, a new letter came. This one was simple. From the board. A single paragraph confirming property boundaries and access limitations, signed by the interim president. No flourish. No warning. I filed it where it belonged. Sometimes power learns only when it meets a line it can't cross. I didn't move the line. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch their machines. I closed my gate. And the county did the rest.